Joining us, opinion writer for the New York Times editorial board, Michelle Cottle, Democratic strategist and co-host of Latino Vote podcast, Chuck Rocha, and senior editor and elections analyst for the Cook Political Report, David Wasserman. All right. So I picked that Lindsey Graham bite today. He could make it into something or he could destroy it because we're talking about the primary season. Donald Trump has ousted Bill Cassidy already, Thomas Massie, 5 Indiana Republicans. He's kicking them out of what would have been safe seats for these Republicans and potentially making some of these seats, if not these seats and other seats, less safe because of the money that needs to get spent in these places. John Cornyn is another good example of this, as Donald Trump has endorsed Ken Paxton. Michelle, was Lindsey Graham prophetic in that statement?
Oh, he was prophetic. Donald Trump has certainly turned the Republican Party into something else. But I don't think it's bigger, stronger, or anything that Graham had in mind. He's basically hollowed it out, turned it into an extension of himself. He's turned Congress into largely a rubber stamp for his priorities and preferences, which in terms of controlling the Republican base voters, the people really committed to turning out in the primaries, works fine for him. We certainly have seen that in the month of May, but I'm not sure that it doesn't deeply damage the party for the long term and even for this midterm year when his popularity is in the toilet and the political winds are generally blowing against him.
Let me read this from one GOP Senate operative telling Politico that these wins are cell phones. So-called victories over the last couple of weeks are just a mirage. They're cell phones. We're not actually beating Democrats. We're not actually advancing legislation. Instead, gas is up 45% due to our actions. And the president's decision to go to war with Iran, he's focused on the ballroom. He's announced a $1.8 billion restitution fund with zero details or congressional authority to do so. It is just crazy. How is this playing out, Dave, on the maps, potentially?
Well, what Lindsey Graham said in terms of Trump destroying, having the capability to destroy the party or magically make it win, yes, Donald Trump has helped Republicans turn out in ways that they weren't able to in 2008 and 2012. But when it comes to midterm elections, we're seeing a wide enthusiasm gap, Republicans struggling to turn out his voters. And we're also seeing in Texas in particular, the likely nomination now of Ken Paxton is perhaps leapfrogging that race ahead of several other of the reach states for Democrats. And in particular, when considering that Trump's approval rating among Hispanic voters is, according to our tracker, at 33, whereas he won 48% of the Hispanic vote in 2024, that is putting the spotlight on how James Tallarico could make up the gap against Ken Paxton in this scenario. And I think Trump has also destroyed his relationship with Senate Republicans, at least the ones who could get future legislation over the reconciliation line for the rest of this Congress by endorsing Paxton.
Yeah, that's the other question here, Chuck. Donald Trump is making enemies in the Senate. You have Bill Cassidy is just going to be there for another few months. But you also have a number of other Senate Republicans who are looking and saying, what are you doing to John Cornyn? This guy's been here forever. He votes with you 99% of the time. His picture on his Twitter is a picture of him and Donald Trump together hugging. What if you're going to do it to him? You can do it to us. Why do we have any fealty to you?
Let me say yes, and they've spent over $150 million in Kentucky, in Indiana, in the Texas primary, in the Louisiana primaries that they could have spent saying something bad about Democrats. But they've been saying something bad about each other to voters in those states. And Dave knows this as well as anybody. These primary electorates look much different than they do in a general. In most all of the elections in the last year where there's been Democrats and Republicans having both an opportunity to vote, we have flipped 28 state House seats while Republicans have flipped nothing, because you see this enthusiasm amongst amongst Democrats. And today's point about Latino voters, where I spend a lot of my time this morning, Univision just put out a new poll about it. I saw Dave at a briefing about that, is that we are fed up. Latinos gave Donald Trump a chance because, to your point earlier, we wanted to see the economy and prices of 2018. Not only did we get higher prices, now we have the layered anxiety of ICE in our communities picking up law-abiding immigrants where the only law they may have broken was crossing a border to get to a better place.
Michelle, just to go back to the senators here, what's the deal with Republican senators? Why are they sticking? I mean, seriously, what's the deal with them? I assume a lot of them look at I would imagine that a lot of them look at the so-called slush fund and say, wait, what is this? We're going to be paying violent rioters? A lot of them weren't comfortable with the idea of pardoning these people in the first place. Now we're going to pay them with taxpayer money? And then Donald Trump is free from a tax audit from the past up until the present?
Who doesn't enjoy a good slush fund, though? Come on. Look, even if they don't like what he's done, I mean, there are big and small issues that they have, not been happy about, including this embarrassing ballroom that he now wants tons of money for. But they're scared of him. They're not just politically scared of him. I mean, obviously, all of these primaries were not just to punish the individuals in those races. They were to send a message to any other Republican who would be thinking of sticking a toe out of line and not being appropriately obsequious and bootlicking. But they're also scared for their families. I've talked to these guys over the years, and there is a lot of concern about people getting unleashed, the MAGA base coming for them. So, they're basically trapped by having allowed this guy to take over the party, and now they're just kind of having to wait it out until voters save them on some level.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see. It will be interesting to see what they say in the future about what's happening right now in the present.